We're ready. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We have today a very interesting topic, the realities of master's and doctoral studies. We have a VIP list of guests, and our advisor, Rodrigo de los Santos from Mexico, is going to help us out leading this session. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am from Education USA Mexico. And today we're going to talk about some important issues regarding the realities of doctoral studies. In my experience as many advisors, I know we get a lot of questions regarding masters and PhD in the US. Hopefully, after this session, some of these issues will be mentioned. I'm going to turn off my camera because I'm having some connectivity issues. So we'll see. First, we have Dr. Francisco Valero Cuevas. He's a professor at the University of Salvador.
All right, I think Rodrigo may have had a couple technical issues, but I will take over gladly. So Rodrigo was introducing our guests for today. As I mentioned, we have, as Rodrigo started mentioning, we have Dr. Francisco Valero Cuevas, professor at University of Southern California. He comes from Mexico. We have Matthew St. Bernard from Barbados. He's a current student pursuing his master's in public policy at Texas A&M. We have Laura Zavaleta, student from El Salvador, pursuing a PhD in literature at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. And we have Francisco Saenz from Costa Rica, who is about to start pursuing his PhD in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at Princeton University. So before we get started, I wanted to explore a little bit about where you're all joining us from and kind of a baseline knowledge of what do we know about graduate studies. Do we know the difference between a doctoral degree, or what does even PhD mean? So we are going to, if you're on Zoom, you're going to see a poll coming up on your screen. And if you're joining us from Facebook Live, please feel free to play along and write your answers in the chat box as I read the questions. So we will get the polling going. So to begin with, tell us where you're joining us from. Maybe you're joining us from North America, Central America, the Caribbean, or other parts of the world. Everyone's welcome, and we're really happy that you're here with us today. As you may know, Education USA has been working on different regional webinars in these last couple months, and this is part of that series of regional webinars. Tell us, do you know the difference between a doctoral degree and a master's degree? Do you know what a PhD means? Are you interested in perhaps pursuing a PhD or a master's? Or maybe you don't know and you just want to learn a little bit about it so you can plan ahead and plan for your near future or your long-term plans, okay? So tell us a little bit about that. We're gonna look at the results. We have a lot of people from North America and Central America. And we have some people know the difference between a master's and a doctoral degree. That's awesome. Let's see at the end if you learned anything new or if you clarified any questions. Do you know what PhD means? Yeah, okay. And if you're interested in a PhD, master's or undecided, we have a lot of people interested in PhDs. And I think it's gonna be very valuable to hear from our guests today, because they're in different tracks and in different moments of their academic endeavors. So Rodrigo is back with us. He's gonna take over now with a brief summary of what is Education USA and how we can help you out navigate your plans for higher education in the US. Take it away, Rodrigo.
All right, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you see the screen?
Perfectly.
Education USA? Okay, awesome. So for those of you that are not familiar with Education USA, we're a global network of advisory centers from the US State Department's Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. We have over 400 Education USA advisory centers around the world. And we offer current, comprehensive, and accurate information regarding US higher education. And this information is completely free. Among our activities, and of course, this has changed the past few months given the current pandemic situation, but usually we hold one-on-one sessions in our centers. We also have public information sessions, and many of our Education USA advising centers have small or big libraries, depending on the type of advising center, when we have books and official test guides available for the public. We also have workshops regarding different topics, such as essay writing, how to pick your best fit in terms of universities, etc. And out of center activities, we also have public information sessions. We have a strong presence in mobility fairs. We engage in outreach activities with US higher education representatives. And finally, virtual activities include fairs, seminars, webinars, virtual advising, and virtual workshop. Actually now, I would say that most of our advising centers have been moved to virtual activities. And I recommend you to check our social media, our social networks, and try to locate your closest US advising center. We operate under the framework of the 5 steps. And what are the 5 steps? Basically, guide you throughout the process. Probably you've heard about finding your list, your social background, your professional and personal goals. We have experience in terms of trying to find the right college and university. Also, and probably the most important aspect for me is finances, right? So we also help you to plan ahead of money. We have a strong list of opportunities in terms of scholarships and funding for you to finance your studies. So depending again on your social work, your essays, your CVs. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. You're breaking off quite a bit. So I think I'm just gonna cover the last bit of this part and introduce our guests, and then we'll move through. But you can continue sharing your screen, and then we'll have the conversation in as planned. All right.
Okay.
So just to summarize the 5 steps and just in general what education is here for. Remember that the quality and the type of education that you can receive in the US is top notch. And so we are here to assist you, to guide you through the process, to give you resources so that you can, you know, get going in your plan, get going with your dreams to study in the US. And what you see over here, these steps are just a general guideline that you can use to refer to where you should be heading and what should be which ones should be your next steps moving forward. And as we get started, right, we have our guests here today. Can we hit the next slide? Okay, I'm gonna start sharing my screen to introduce our guests today. Like we said in the beginning, we have Dr. Francisco Valero Cuevas, professor at University of Southern California. We have Matthew San Bernard from Barbados, pursuing a master's at Texas A&M. Say hello. We have Laura Zavaleta from Salvador at Washington University in St. Louis. And we have Francisco Saenz, about to start his PhD at Princeton University. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your insights and your experiences. Perhaps I would like to start with a question to all 4 of you. Tell us briefly, right? Why did you choose and how did you choose to start your studies in the US? Dr. Valero, please.
Yes, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. So the question is, why did I choose to study in the US, I guess? Well, because I knew that I wanted to study. I've always enjoyed learning. And I knew that the universities in the US were very good. And I spoke English. I didn't speak other languages that I could have, been successful with at the time. And also the opportunity arose for me to be able to fund it. So then I pursued it.
And tell us a little bit about the steps that you took, because for example, you have a very interesting path in which you didn't only go through your undergrad, but then you continued with your higher education.
Yes, happily. So my path started with the Benjamin Franklin Library, actually, because I just went and I asked them. At the time, there was no internet, so you needed to find the information physically. So I would go and I met a very nice woman, Joanne Shanko, at the Benjamin Franklin Library. They had all the books and the SAT and all of that. And then there was a program that would guide you through the application process. So I followed that process, and I was one of 10 people who, at the time, through the Institute of International Education, received scholarships from the universities. IIE was kind of a clearinghouse for this information, and so I think I was one of the 10 out of 1,000 applicants that year, and the universities offered the support for the undergraduate program in engineering that was at Swarthmore College. And then one thing led to another. Then I was a Watson Fellow. I lived in India for a year studying philosophy. Then I did a master's in Canada. Then I did a PhD at Stanford in the US. Then I was a professor at Cornell University. I was tenured there, and then University of Southern California recruited me to come to Los Angeles. And yeah, that's a synopsis of the academic path.
Thanks so much, Dr. Valero. Tell us, Matthew, about your journey and why did you decide to pursue a postgraduate degree in the US?
Hi, good evening. Well, I would say my journey took a long time because I was applying for scholarships for a while, but upon the first try of applying to Fulbright, I was successful. And that happened as a result of getting a forwarded email about the Fulbright program from actually Miss Martinez. And she would have forwarded it to members at my school because I was a teacher before. And I applied for the scholarship and I got word that I was successful, and I was really elated about that. And from there, I got really sound counseling when it came to what universities would be a good fit for my desires when it came to studying. And I also was very happy to be placed in a public policy program because it really furthers my goals of community development. And I'm very interested in that, in making sure and ensuring that communities, specifically in Barbados and the Caribbean, are sustainable and that they are thinking about growth patterns when it comes to ensuring that they are not necessarily dependent on government support or aid, but they're also able to crowdfund and crowdsource for themselves.
Thanks so much, Matthew. What about you, Laura? Tell us about your experience and your decision to go to the US.
Yes, actually, how Dr. Valero said, I already have knowledge, I know some researchers from scholars, from Latin American scholars in the United States, that they work there and make research in the United States. So I had a good, I already know that it was a potential good experience for me, but I prioritize also the kind of experience that I like, because I had two options. I was looking for a PhD in other country, and in this program, they offered me a 3 years experience in a distance modality. I had the opportunity to stay in my homeland and to follow some deadlines to submit the draft of my research, and at the different stages of it. And it was focused on the research outputs. And other side, it was the option in the United States that it was a more immersive experience. And that's why I decided for the United States, because I have a different coursework that includes received classes, teaching experience, and research. And that's the experience to stay here, to have a community of researchers, of learners, and people who are discussing things of the field. That was I think a better option.
Perfect, thanks, Laura. And last but not least, Francisco, tell us about your decision and your journey to start your PhD in the US.
Okay, well, first, the first step I would say was to fall in love with the topic or a research topic. That was during my college years. And I got so interested in this topic that I began to start learning by myself and reading a lot about this topic that I fell in love with. And then it was when I read that there were like real challenging problems right now that are avoiding us to get into the culmination of several experimental setups that could give us like a really good things related to power generation. So when I read about those promises, I was like, I really need to contribute to this field. And yeah, I started learning and reading more about this, and then discovered that most of the research in this field was being performed in the United States, and not in one place in particular, but in several research centers and different universities. So yeah, I started learning more and more again, and decided to apply to a university, well, several universities in the US, because I think they are the best leaders in the world in this field, as far as I know. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So one of the things I'm learning from each of you right now is this idea of the diversity that is offered, right? And the flexibility and the malleability of a US degree to what you're requesting or what you're requiring as a student. And I think that is one of the strong suits of higher education in the US. But I want to, perhaps this is a question for Dr. Valero. In your experience as a faculty member in different institutions and in different facets, right, in different moments, for you, what are some of the differences that an individual has to take into account between pursuing a master's or a PhD in the US?
Thank you for asking that, because I find over the years that is where the most confusion I see in students from abroad. And I was happy to see that many people here said that they knew the difference between the master's and PhD. That's very good. But just to be clear, I'd like to propose my opinion on that, because they're very different. The application process is extremely different. How you fund it is entirely different. What you do is entirely different. So at a very high level, a master's degree is an advancement in a particular field. And just like an undergraduate student, as a master's student, you're a consumer of information. As a PhD student, you take the next step and you actually become a generator of information. So the PhD is not for the faint-hearted, because you are expected to contribute to the knowledge of a field. Therefore, it takes longer. And then this also leads to very different aspects as to the mechanics of how do you apply to these programs. For the master's students, you will very, very, very seldom find scholarships from the universities, because it's like their undergraduate program. For the PhD, because it's so selective, and I as a professor do this all the time, I want to select the best people to work with me, and therefore most PhD programs have a full scholarship. They're more competitive. But this also says, like I think Francisco was saying, how do you select a school for a master's? Well, the reputation of the school, the nature of the program. How do you select a school for the PhD? It's entirely different. You're actually zeroing on a particular professor with whom you want to learn particular things, which requires a level of maturity. So I'll just say two more quick things. The first is that this is a process that's very confusing, but it's important to get to know the process before you start it. And I thank you for doing this. And it's so confusing that I even started a nonprofit organization to help underrepresented minority students get in admissions into the universities. And we actually also have a program to guide people on how to do the applications. So I'll leave it at that. I'll take questions and comments.
So Dr. Valero, I have a follow-up question. I get many students with their bachelor's in Mexico, licenciaturas, and they find that they can directly apply to PhD. I'm curious about your insights regarding this.
Yeah.
Those students that only have a bachelor's, they want to apply directly to the PhD.
That, in fact, is the standard way of doing it in the US. I can tell you at least half, if not 2/3, of all PhD students come directly from the bachelor's. For some reason, I don't know why, in Latin America, it is thought to be an inviolable law that you have to have a master's before you can apply to the PhD. And that's 100% false. In fact, when I was doing this application, I didn't have guidance, so I thought I needed a master's for the PhD. But no, actually you don't need it. So it's 100% untrue that you need a master's. Now, if you have a master's, it might help you because you demonstrate that you have advanced knowledge of the field. But if you know what you want to do already at the level of the undergraduate, 70–80% of students that I have in my lab come straight from the undergraduate in the sciences. And this is part of what we discussed. So I can point you to that boot camp that I've been mentioning, but that's a very good question. I'm so glad you asked it.
Yeah, thank you. That's a big one, I think. So I have another question, and this is open for the entire panel. So in your experience, what are the advantages and disadvantages of obtaining a postgraduate degree in the United States? And probably we can start with Laura. Laura, are you there?
Yeah. Well, if I think in disadvantages, I don't know. I like to think in challenges, because a doctoral degree, a PhD, is a challenge every day. You have to be a better student, a better researcher, a better reader every day, and you have to adjust your time, your abilities, your habit in order to get the best timing for all the things that you have to do. And I think that in the United States, it's a good place to learn that, because it's a type of academy that they are taking care of you. They give you funding in order that you have a full-time experience. That's good. And other advantages are a lot of resources that you have. You have financial resources, in researchers grants. You have the libraries offer grants. For example, this summer I wanted to go to Central America to make a research in the libraries, archival research. And there's a lot of institutions that can give you this kind of funding, but also you have another type of resources, like the libraries, the books that are here, the congress that you can attend, and talking about your specific program, it's very important. The environment of the university. You have a warm environment. You have a very positive and constructive environment to stay here only studying and only researching and making your a good profile as a scholar.
Thank you. Those are great insights. How about you, Matthew? So far, what do you think are the main advantages of studying in Texas A&M, or in general in the US?
Okay, I would say that one of the biggest advantages is the fact that many of the professors at the university have been practitioners. So they have practical experience, they have stories, they have knowledge from the field that they bring into the classroom, and that really does help with really streamlining your ideas of what it would look like to work in the area. I would also say that there are a wealth of resources that you can utilize. There are conferences, well, previously there were conferences you could attend. They're going to be online now, but the university provides funding for that so that you can gain more information about the subject area, and also, again, about practical experiences in the area. And as someone who did not necessarily work in the area before, but came from teaching and wanted to get into the area, that's been very helpful in determining how it would look to work in the specific area.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Valero, in your opinion, what are the main advantages or disadvantages of studying in the US, a postgraduate degree?
Well, a lot of science gets done here, so the infrastructure for research is very large. And when you consider that the population of the US is comparable to that of all of Europe, or all of Latin America, or at least South America, then there is a richness of resources. What are the chances that inside of 300 million people, you will have an expert in any one particular thing? Well, the chances are very high. Smaller countries are at a disadvantage, where if you have a population of, say, 100 or 50 or 20 million people, what are the chances that you will be able to have a true expert in every field of knowledge, right? So the size of the US, you know, definitely helps in that regard.
Thank you. And Francisco, I know that this is a premature question for you because you're just about to start your program. So I want to ask you a question, a different question. Can you tell us actually a little bit about your program?
Okay, well, my program is the PhD program of the Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department at Princeton University. But the PhD program is sort of like, has several fields or research areas. So even though the name is Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, I will work with fusion of plasma physics. So that's one of the areas of the PhD program, but they have like applied dynamics, robotics, materials and materials design. So it's a very diverse program. And this year, the department got 10 students for the PhD program, and we are all in different areas. It is not just one area. And I think that they are very diverse. It is very different than what I would think of a PhD program two years ago. And yeah, basically that's the topic that we work with. And yeah, but that will be the program. I don't know if you have a
Francisco, I actually, we received one question for you in regards to the timing. The question is, did you apply to your PhD program on your last year of your bachelor's, or when in timing did you decide to apply?
Okay, well, I made my first application 2 years ago, but I got no admission, and then I applied a second time, and the second time was with Education USA advising, so really great help there. And yeah, but I didn't want to pursue a PhD degree during my last year because the topic that I want to work with, it is not that well covered in a mechanical engineering curriculum, usually, at least not in Latin America or in Costa Rica. So when you start learning about this topic, you would notice that, yeah, I know I have no theoretical foundation for this, and I need to get it. And yeah, I got the idea to apply to a master's degree first, but then several years passed, and I thought that it would be good to apply to a PhD directly because I had already decided what topic I would like to work on. And yeah, so I would say I applied to my PhD 2 years after graduation. Well, 1 year after graduation, yeah. But I got admission 2 years after graduation. Yeah, that was it.
But I would like to highlight in that sense, and Rodrigo may want to jump in on this, is that that doesn't necessarily have to be the case for everyone, right? You can, like Dr. Valero was saying earlier, it can be a different moment in your life. You know, you may already have a master's, or you may just be graduating from your bachelor's, or maybe you don't have a master's and it's been some time since you graduated from your undergrad degree. So it is a matter of your own case and the field that you're aiming to pursue. And that's where, you know, content and knowledge is precious. You know, you can reach out to your Education USA Advising Center and get help to clarify any doubts. But that is just a reference point, what Francisco experienced.
Yeah, if
yeah,
I could,
definitely. Go ahead, Dr. Valero.
Yeah, if I could follow up on that question, it's a very critical one because that's where I think most students in Latin America, if not make a mistake, they waste time unnecessarily. The process is very straightforward. And so when I was at Stanford, when I was at Cornell, when I was at USC, I would see very, very, very few students from Latin America doing the PhD. So for 10 years, I've been investigating why. And so what I did is I created a program where I would go to Mexico City, work with my friends at UNAM, identify people who wanted to do the PhD during their undergraduate year, which is actually their second to last year, that summer. And if you time things correctly, then they would be admitted to the PhD as they were finishing their undergraduate. And so at USC, we went from 0 students from Mexico doing PhDs to now, I believe, 17 fully funded PhD students from Mexico, just because I showed them how to do the timing. And the main complaint I would hear from people is like, oh, I don't have time to apply. And I would tell them, well, how do the students from Singapore, Korea, China, India, Germany, Italy, how do they find time to apply for PhD studies? Because about 40% of the students in engineering come from abroad. How did they find time to apply to the fully funded PhD? So it's very simple. You start in the summer, you begin to follow the different steps, which for some reason I do not understand, that not well known in Latin America, but it's very standard. And very quickly, another important thing I'll mention about the process is that if you're applying to a master's degree, you just identify the school, send your application, take your GREs, whatever, send those in. If you're applying to the PhD and you want to have a good chance of admission, you need to identify the investigator and actually contact them a year ahead of time. And I get 2 emails a week from people from all over the world saying, dear Dr. Valero, I want to do a PhD with you. But then they don't tell me why. So if you go to my website, you'll actually see I give people instructions. If you must contact me, tell me why you want to work with me. So that helps. You must do that to get essentially your foot in the door with someone. And I imagine this is a little bit like Francisco argued, like, I have an interest in this particular topic, and I have identified you as the person with whom I want to study. And the reason is this: we as professors don't want you to have invented something new just to work with us, but we want to know why, from the 50 applicants I have to my lab each year, why are you the person that is really interested in my research area? And I think that's where students from all over the world make an important mistake, that they just write the professor, dear Professor such and such, I would love to do a PhD with you. Can you tell me about your projects? It's like, well, you have Google, right? You could read my papers for free. So that's why, on my website, you can find that. And that's why, I've done these programs with USC, with Cornell, and now with Acceso Academy, where we show how it's actually very straightforward.
Thank you, Dr. Valero. And I'm wondering, for whoever wants to answer this, talking a little bit about the advantages of the context that a student brings to the application process. What may be, in your experiences and opinions, some of the advantages that a student may bring to their application? What do I mean by this? Perhaps having work experience, or being fresh off their undergrad, or being having some research experience. What are some of those highlights and recommendations that you in each of your fields you've noticed can be a contribution and an advantage?
I can answer. I would say, yes, work experience definitely does matter when it comes to applying, specifically for my field of public policy. But I think also what is most important is being able to have a passion and demonstrate that passion for the area. Just as Dr. Valero was saying, there must be a why, a reason why you want to study this. It is it's part of higher education. It's a master's or a doctorate degree. So bringing that passion and demonstrating that this is an area that you are eager to learn about and also to transmit to others and perhaps serve others is very important. And I found that that will serve students well when it comes to the application process and in the degree as well, because master's degree and a doctorate degree require a lot of work. So you have to be passionate about the area that you're going to study.
Thank you, Matthew. Anyone else?
I agree with Matthew and this issue of the passion, because I received it's something that that works not only in the application to begin the studies in the United States, but it works in the academy of the United States, because in the last semester I received a course in research writing and in methodology practicum, and we learned how to do our dossier to apply for a job in the United States. So I learned how to do a teaching statement, a research statement, a different how to try to make up some things of some items of my CV that can be more interesting for the United States market. So I think that demonstrate that passion is very important. And the other thing I think that it can be it's a mix of try to engage with someone, try to call people that you like to work with, call to universities or write to these scholars, and try to make answers about the program and about the field of research that you are figuring out.
Yeah, and actually I want to add something about what Professor Dr. Valero said. This passion that we are talking about, it's really important, because I think it's what really maybe distinguishes, I don't know if that's the correct term, it distinguishes you from other applicants. Dr. Valero said he receives 50 applications from people all around the world, and I think that what really distinguishes one student from the other 49 applicants is that passion. And you have to be really, really specific and make sure that you are really making that passion clear to the professor that you're interested in. Because you may say, yeah, I read about this paper and just the research topic, but that is just saying that you're interested. You have to make sure that the professor gets your passion, understands what is driving you to and decide to get this career path and pursue a doctoral degree or master's degree in that case. But it is really, really important to make that passion clear, and in your application process, it would be good to dedicate enough time to put that into paper, because you could know what your passion is and how big it is, but when you try to put it in paper, it is like you run out of words, you have no words to describe what it is. So it is really good that you try, at least when writing these emails to professors or something, to try to describe your passion and put it into words or in paper. Yeah.
Awesome. Those are great answers. And I think they connect back to what Professor Valero was saying, right? And what Education USA often repeats is this idea of the best fit, and how that is essential. And you have to realize that it's not only about what the school offers you or the program offers you, but what you offer to the program. And identifying that match is going to increase, it's going to increase the likelihood of you getting admitted.
Actually, I have a follow-up question for Matthew. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, perfect. So Matthew, a master's in public policy is a very particular program. And I was wondering, can you tell us the difference between an MPP and a PhD in public policy? are you considering applying?
I'm so sorry. I think you broke up a little bit, so I didn't really hear certain parts of the question.
Well, I have a question for you too, Matthew. So maybe I'll wait for Rodrigo to perhaps write the question to me and I can ask that specific question. But we did get one question for you, Matthew. And it says, just as you, I am interested in public policy, and I found masters and PhDs in engineering and public policy, I think they meant. I would like to ask you how different you think it can be to apply what you learn in the US once you go back to your own country, given the fact that policies may change within countries.
Well, I think that it definitely depends on the university that you go to, because some universities for public policy focus more on the state and local aspect of US public policy, while other universities look more at the international landscape. So with Texas A&M, I feel like they've given me a great opportunity to look at public policy internationally. And that has allowed me to be able to apply a lot of the concepts that I've been taught here back to the local context. And I also feel like I have the opportunity very often to share what is taking place in Barbados and really make those linkages between Barbados and the Caribbean as well, and also the United States context. So it really does depend on the university. And it also does depend on the type of courses, the breadth that you have when it comes to taking courses. So I try to focus on international development courses and courses that really set the context in the international arena, and that really has helped. So I would say it depends heavily on the university that you choose for the public policy program.
Okay, and what Rodrigo meant to ask was basically, what are some of the basic differences between a master's or a PhD in public policy?
Okay, well, for the Masters in Public Policy, there's a specific curriculum that we are following. You have courses that you're going to take, and you're tailoring those towards your interests. And with the PhD, it would be in research more so. So you would perhaps come with a specific question that you're trying to research, a problem that you're perhaps solving, or you're looking at exploring a specific area and then tailoring your research towards that. So the major difference is for the masters, you're going to have a curriculum that you're following to some extent, where there are courses that you're going to be choosing. Whereas for the PhD, you're going to be doing research more so in a specific area of your interest.
Right, and I think that brings us back to that basic difference that Dr. Valero shared, right? One side, you're consuming content, and in the other side, you're generating. And on that note, I want to ask an open question to whomever wants to answer it. When a person chooses to study a PhD, do they necessarily need to dedicate themselves to academia afterwards? And as a tag along on this question is, what are some of the job prospects and differences after getting a PhD or a master's? Where do you go? Anybody?
If you like, I can address that. This is a very important question, because oftentimes people feel that they're being asked to define their entire future. Now, for example, the questions about the type of program, the questions about what topic should you use, should you focus on, would that topic apply somewhere else? It's very, very important to realize that the best way to succeed at a PhD is to have motivation for a particular topic today. What happens later will happen, but don't be paralyzed by thinking, oh my God, I don't know what program to apply to. So long as the program motivates you and you find that to be of incredible interest to you, pursue that program, because the rest will take care of itself. You can actually even change fields. I mean, there was this question about how does this field apply between this country or that country? Well, I changed fields. I started out as a mechanical engineering graduate, and now I do neuroscience or AI and computer science. It doesn't really matter, because what's important is that you pursue a program that at the time now you're passionate about. Don't think that you're getting cornered into a very limited area. And about your question, second question, which was about academia versus industry. Half of my students go into industry, half go into academia. Sometimes students are afraid, like, oh my God, I'm going to end up as an academic. And like, no, right now you do both very easily, or bounce between them. So don't worry too much about that. The important thing that you realize is that what you're doing in the PhD is you're learning to learn. It's the training that you're receiving in the context of your PhD work that's what matters. So you should pick your topic in a way that motivates you so you do a good job. The rest will take care of itself.
Thank you, Dr. Valero. Anyone else want to add in to maybe their experiences, their own plans?
Yeah, I can add my ideas on the issue. For me, my plans really include being a practitioner in the area of development policy, shaping public policies that really cater to the needs of individuals within a specific country, specifically Barbados. That's my intention right now. And in general, my experience has been that the master's degree and the PhD really are what you make it. So you're going to have to find scope, and you're going to have to recognize that it does not pigeonhole you unless you really want it to. So it's really about finding what's out there, and if there's nothing that really fits your interest per se, creating that niche so that you're able to really function in the role and capacity that you want to. While that dynamic may have changed as a result of the current world affairs, there's always still scope for someone who's willing to invest in researching and determining what areas are really open and carving out a path for themselves if that is the need.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add something that, well, obviously I'm about to start my PhD program, but I will just share what I've heard from other students. Well, at least for the PhD, the other members of the program, the older ones have shared that, well, some of them are interested in following a career in industry, others in academia. But I think adding to what Professor Valero said is that, yeah, the PhD program is intended to teach you how to learn. And I believe that this applies to all PhD programs, at least in the US, because usually PhDs are interdisciplinary. So it is not that there is a fixed set of courses that you will take. You are actually deciding which courses you will take. So basically, you will have a whole mixture of courses from different areas. For instance, I will take courses in mechanical engineering, but also courses from physics and other courses from, I don't know, maybe electronical engineering, robotics. Particularly, I will take a course related to machine learning, and that's something that usually mechanical engineers do not know about, at least in the undergraduate curriculum. But I mean, by taking this machine learning and spending 5 years doing a machine learning PhD program, maybe I could decide at the end, yeah, I think I will not pursue a career in plasmas and apply machine learning to plasmas. I will apply machine learning to robotics or this other stuff. So if I do that, I will be changing the whole course of my career path that I wanted at the beginning of the PhD program. So yeah, I think that explains itself. Yeah.
Could I make a very short comment?
Mm-hmm.
I think that one takeaway message that people should come away with is that if you're a motivated person who's bright and knows what they want to do, universities want you. We want you to apply, to the point where in many countries, like Mexico, I know that USC has an office. Dr. McCracken is in Mexico City specifically to find you, because that's what universities need most. They want you. So don't think of this as, oh my God, universities are trying to keep me out. No, 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 it's the other way around. Universities are dying to find you. And there are people like Dr. McCracken from USC and from many other universities that actually want to identify you. So this is why I appreciate the work that you all are doing here. This is very, very important work.
Thank you for your answers. They're all very valuable insights. We have a question on vocabulary, let's say. So it reads, talking about levels of graduate studies for both advisors and prospective students, many people refer to doctorate programs as PhD. But is this just referring to doctors of philosophy, but not for all doctorate programs, right? How can we refer to all highest degrees awarded as PhDs? Anybody want to take this one?
Could you clarify the question? I'm trying to.
I think they mean, is the highest degree available in every field a PhD, a doctorate, or or because it's Doctor of Philosophy, right? So they're wondering why, if it's a PhD in chemistry, it's still a Doctor of Philosophy, you know, a PhD.
It is the highest academic degree there is. And so, for example, medical doctors and, you know, DPTs, those are professional degrees, but the PhD means that you are a teacher. That to be a doctor, the Greek etymology of the word is to teach. So it is the highest degree there is.
Right, thank you. One other question, for example, for Matthew. Matthew, why did you choose a master's program and not a PhD program?
Well, I chose a master's program because, to be honest, I didn't consider a PhD because I did not know that you could go straight from a bachelor's program to a PhD. However, I do see the benefit of choosing a master's because I had work experience. I taught for 7 years, but I did not have specific experience in the area that I wanted to function in. So it seemed like the next logical step for me to get that information first in order to be able to function in the area before I decided to do a doctorate.
Thank you. One other question is, Dr. Valero, when contacting professors, should I send my CV and the reason why I hope to work with them? I ask because in the application we submit, both a CV and a personal statement later on. So perhaps what would be your advice on reaching out to professors?
So I posted to everyone a little while ago this web page on my website with how I want people to contact me. And I get so many emails saying, I want to work with you, here's my CV, or can you tell me what you do, that I actually am very specific. I ask them, why are you interested in this area? Why are you interested in working with me? Which of my papers have you found to be most compatible with your interests? And of course, I assume that they're very good students. I assume that they have a very good CV, right? So you could send that, but the CV says very little, because the CV just tells you what you've done. It doesn't tell me where they want to go and why with me. That is the key thing that if we faculty want to know.
And would you want to know that right off the first, the first contact that the student, when the student first reaches out to you? Would you like to know that? Okay.
Because let me turn this around and say, so do you know who pays for the PhD scholarship that the student receives? Who's paying their salary and their tuition and that? I do. Personally, my lab, the funds from my lab are expected to support my students. So if I were to ask any one of the participants for a job and say, hi, I'd like to work with you, and they have to pay me, and they have limited funds, they will want to know, well, why do you want to work with me specifically? Because there are a lot of people who could work with me, but tell me how we could get along so that you help my lab.
All right, perfect, thank you. One other question in regards to the current affairs that we're all facing. Are you all, is any of you aware of any differences in the process for application given the current pandemic in regards, for example, to testing or any other requirements for students who may be looking to apply this fall?
Well, I can speak to one requirement. Specifically, because there is a reduction in travel, for some countries, it is a bit more difficult to get to Texas A&M. So the remote component for studies has been boosted, and students who might have normally come to study here in person are studying remotely. When it comes to specific countries, there may be testing requirements just before you travel. But other than that, I'm not sure of any for Texas A&M, just that one.
Anyone else?
My advice to you would be, this too shall pass. The future belongs to those who plan ahead. So if you know what you want to do, and you know that, like I was saying, universities need you, then go through the process, apply, and then just go for it. I think an important thing for you to consider is not necessarily the change in political climate, but the change with regard to the GRE. The GRE is optional in some places and not all, but students in Latin America often disregard the importance of the GRE. And you do not pay attention to the GRE at your peril. You should take it once, you should take it twice until you get a score in the 95th percentile or better. It's that important, but people sometimes don't understand that. I think proceed as you always would have. This too shall pass. Universities will still need you. I will still need you. So full steam ahead.
Thank you. And now a general question to whomever wants to answer it is, how important is your age when applying to graduate school? Could be master's or PhD. And is it better to be a young applicant? Dr. Valero, take it away, and then Laura, please.
I don't want to, take over, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, but I think it should matter to the applicants. The sooner you get going, the better, because life will get in the way. Eventually, life only gets more complicated. So my advice to you is, for your own sake, apply as early as you can. From my perspective, I've had students who are fresh out of the undergraduate or who are changing a career. Doesn't matter to the professor.
Laura?
Yes, I think that that depends on each case. In my case, for example, I did my master degree in the University of Barcelona first. I got a lot of experience in a publishing department in El Salvador, and I think that all this experience in the Central American field of literature gave me a lot of knowledge about how the things works on literature, on not only in literature, but also in all the issues about Central American studies, publishing, etc., in all the region. So, but if we think that on the other side, I have a lot of classmates that they only had the bachelor degree and then applied to the PhD, and they are great too. And I think that depends on your expectations, your dreams, that you, like someone told, that the specific interest that you have, and that you have the clarity of that.
Thank you, Laura. And maybe Francisco can help me with this one. Does the location of a university affect the quality of a master's or PhD? For example, are there certain cities that are ideal to study, say, business, or in your case, aerospace engineering?
Well, I do not know how precise I can answer to that, but I would say that maybe it depends on the location of the university. Maybe your degree or your experience pursuing your degree could get improved depending on the city. If the city has maybe more research centers that work on topics that you want to learn about, that would be the only reason that I think that the location of the university has could cause a detriment or an improvement to your degree or your experience pursuing the degree. But at least engineering wise or science wise, but I do not know about business majors or business postdoctorate degrees or something. I do not know about that.
Matthew, what is your take on this?
Yes, I would say that maybe for some specific fields, it might be more advantageous to be at a university that perhaps has resources when it comes to that area, let's say agriculture and engineering. For Texas A&M, it's definitely advantageous to come here for aerospace engineering because of the proximity to Houston and also the program that you have here. But really, university life in the US is what you make it, and you can get a very high quality degree from a multiplicity of universities. It doesn't matter as much as sometimes it is marketed. I feel like at Texas A&M, I'm getting an excellent degree, and that's particularly because of the strength of the faculty and also the commitment to students here. So I would say location can matter based on perhaps your personal taste, but in general, your university experience is really what you make it.
Thank you. And I think coming back to some of the elements that each of our guests have mentioned is that more so than the location, it'll be what the program is going to give you, right? But location is an important variable. It can be an important variable. And in that sense, I would highly suggest you reach out to your Education USA Advising Center so that you can explore other types of variables. You know, what does a city mean? What does it imply? What does a more urban or suburban area mean in terms of living costs or accessibility to public transport, airports, activities outside your campus? But at the graduate level, you have to realize that, like they mentioned, right? Our guest mentioned, it has to be something that you really love, that you really enjoy, because it's going to be a lot of effort in that field. So we've covered a lot of content and a lot of questions. And so I just wanted to maybe ask each of our guests to share with us a few recommendations or highlight recommendations that have helped you and that can help our attendees today in their graduate pursuits. Let's start with Laura, please.
Okay. Well, I maybe have two advice for the people who want to apply to a program in the United States. The first is that go to Education USA office. In my case, it was really helpful because I had I don't know what's the name, the opportunity. I don't remember the name of the scholarship, but I got on a scholarship to study for the GRE and for the TOEFL in order to have a good score, and then you can add to these other benefits like the advice that you got from all the people there. And the other thing is that research all the possible programs that you want to do. Because in my case, I have several opportunities. I applied to Boston University. I applied to Vanderbilt University because my sister was there, but probably it was not my better option in order to the connection with scholars that are expert on my field. And I'm very happy with my final decision in Washington University. They have we have a lot of a big match with, for example, popular culture, material culture, and things that I really want to research in my region. So I think that it's important to make research in advance.
Thank you, Laura. Let's hear Francisco Saenz.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, so well, my recommendation would be, Dr. Valero mentioned that test scores are really important, and they really are really important. I would say, yeah, if you plan ahead, please do it and get the best score you can. But also, I would say that studying for the GRE and the TOEFL can be tough. But I would say that from my experience with this application, also the personal statement or the statement of purpose that is usually required for all PhD applications in the United States, I would say that it was as tough as studying for the GRE because, well, the help that I received from the Education USA office here in Costa Rica, they told me that the statement of purpose is what actually distinguishes you from other students, because I mean they all take the GRE, they all take the TOEFL test, at least for us Latin Americans, and a GRE score, it is just to make sure that you will be able to take the courses here at the university that you're applying to, but it doesn't let the department know if you are really interested in that. So everyone takes the GRE and everyone sends their scores. If you get a good score, that's great, but that is not describing your passion about the field that you're applying to, but your personal statement does do that. So I would say the same time that you study for the GRE, please dedicate that same amount of time to preparing your statement of purpose. Put your passion into words, because at least for me, it was really, really difficult. And when I started writing the statement of purpose, I would get stuck, and it usually ends up being a really long document, and you have to send the most concise document that you have, because you also have to be aware that these people, they are humans. They get tired. When you start reading the statement of purpose, they might get get bored or tired when reading it, and if that happens, they will just toss your statement of purpose away and say, no, this is not a good applicant. So what really distinguishes you is your statement of purpose, and this is what I think professors really want to read you, or really want to read about you. You get a good score, great. Okay, then now I can review your statement of purpose and check if you are a really good applicant. So that would be my recommendation.
Thanks, Francisco. And Matthew, what could be your advice?
Well, I would have to agree with what Francisco said about your personal statement. It really does matter what you say in that personal statement. I think it's important to demonstrate a level of maturity, confidence, and just the ability to bring over to the interviewers that you are eager and excited to do this, and you're fully committed to the graduate program that you're going to enlist in. I would also say that it's really important to work with Education USA, because they definitely do have deeper insights into universities that are really tailored and that really match to your interests and also your personal desires of what you want to get out of the program. And you shouldn't be daunted at all. You should definitely approach it with some vigor and enthusiasm. And I think those are really the qualities that will set you apart from other candidates.
Thank you. And Dr. Valero, any recommendations?
I agree very much with what Francisco and Matthew have said. What I would leave you with is this message that I still do not understand why we do not have more Latin Americans in the top PhD programs in the US, if the talent is there. And so what I want to say is that I think it's a matter of not knowing how to apply. And I'm very happy that, Education USA is doing this. I care deeply about this problem to the point that I actually started this nonprofit to help, underrepresented minority students and Latin Americans to gain access to these incredible educational opportunities. And if people from all around the world can do it, so can you. There is nothing to stop you other than create your plan and follow it.
Thank you. So the importance of planning and following through with your plans, right? Thank you, everyone, all of our participants, all of our guests, Laura, Francisco, Matthew, Dr. Valero Cuevas. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. Please remember that you can reach out to your Education USA Advising Center right on screen. You can find the link where you can search for the center nearest to you. And we'll be happy to get in touch with you, set up a virtual appointment, and get going on that plan to follow through. Find us on social media as well. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. And we wish you all the best and stay safe. Bye-bye.